Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my cozy little home for over 15 years now. It's nothing too fancy, just a simple two-bedroom house with a small yard, but it's perfect for me. The neighborhood itself is pretty quiet and uneventful, filled mostly with retirees and young families. Nothing too dramatic ever happens around here, and I like it that way. But all that changed when Karen moved in across the street. From the very first week, it was obvious Karen was going to be a difficult neighbor. She just had that entitled, "Can I speak to the manager?" look about her. Plus, she made no effort to introduce herself or get to know anyone on our street. I tried being friendly at first, even baking her some cookies to welcome her to the area, but she just grabbed them without so much as a thank you and slammed the door in my face. Well, so much for neighborly hospitality. A few weeks later, I looked out my window to see a fancy new sports car parked in Karen's driveway. Turns out it belonged to her son Brandon, who had just turned 16. Karen was bragging to anyone who would listen about buying her perfect angel a brand new car for his birthday. I thought it seemed a bit excessive for a 16-year-old, but hey, it wasn't my kid or my money. That's when the real trouble started. Brandon began speeding up and down our street in that fancy sports car, blasting loud music and revving the engine. Our street isn't very long, so there's no need to drive fast, but Brandon seemed to think it was his own personal racetrack. Several neighbors tried asking Karen to speak to her son about his reckless driving, but she refused, insisting her son could do no wrong. One day, I was washing dishes and glanced out my kitchen window just in time to see Brandon peeling out of the driveway, leaving tire marks on the street. As he sped by, the force of his speed actually shattered one of my front windows. Glass went flying everywhere. I was furious. This was too far. I immediately called Karen and told her she needed to pay for the damage her son caused. But instead of apologizing, she had the audacity to yell at me, claiming I must have cracked the window myself to frame her perfect angel. Unbelievable. I ended up having to take Karen to small claims court just to get her to pay for my broken window. Even in court, she refused to admit her son had done anything wrong. But I had a neighbor testify as a witness to Brandon's reckless driving, and the judge ordered Karen to pay. She was livid, cursing and threatening me as she stormed out of the courthouse. Charming woman. I thought maybe that court case would make Brandon be more careful, but his bad behavior just escalated. Several times I caught him tossing trash and fast food bags onto my lawn. So immature. Then one evening I came home to find my mailbox completely smashed to pieces. Didn't take a genius to figure out who the culprit was. The final straw came a few weeks later. I came home from work early one day and walked into my house to find Brandon in my living room. The audacity of this kid. He had used a brick to smash my back porch door window and let himself in. Caught completely red-handed, Brandon spewed some ridiculous story about hearing screams coming from my house, so he had to break in because he was concerned. Yeah, right. I immediately called the police and they came and arrested Brandon for breaking and entering. Well, Karen arrived home just as the police cruiser was pulling away with her precious angel in the back seat. She completely lost it on me. How dare I have her son arrested over a simple misunderstanding? This was all my fault for falsely accusing her perfect boy. She was screaming in my face on my own front lawn. At that point, I was done being nice. I told Karen if she didn't get off my property, I'd have her arrested for trespassing. Wisely, she did leave, but not before vowing I'd regret this. The court ordered Brandon to pay fines, take anger management classes, and perform community service for his breaking and entering stunt. Karen, of course, tried to fight it, but with my testimony and the broken glass evidence, the ruling stood. Ever since then, Karen refuses to even look at me, which is perfectly fine by me. Brandon still lives with her, but he's not allowed to drive anymore until he's 18, and if that delinquent kid ever steps foot on my property again, I won't hesitate to call the police. Karen clearly refuses to discipline her son, so the justice system will have to do it for her. I just feel bad for whoever ends up living near Brandon next once he's an adult. With a mother like Karen always making excuses for him, he's sure to keep terrorizing any neighborhood he moves into. But for now at least, the street is quiet again. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I couldn't believe it. I walked out of the commissary with 2 heavy bags of groceries in my hands, excited to finally make a homemade meal after months of eating at the chow hall. But when I approached my car, my heart dropped. The rear passenger window was shattered, glass littering the black leather seats. "No, no, no!" I murmured in disbelief, nearly dropping the grocery bags. As I peered inside, I could see the glove box hanging open, the contents ransacked and papers strewn about the floor mats. The center console had been ripped open as well, but what really made my blood boil was the yellow sticky note adhered to the steering wheel. In scratchy handwriting it read, "Your car was illegally parked with an expired inspection sticker. Your belongings have been confiscated and can be retrieved at the local police station after paying the violation fee." "This is unbelievable!" I cried out. I wanted to crumple up the note and hurl it across the parking lot. My inspection sticker wasn't even expired. I had just renewed it last month when I got my oil changed on base. Not only had some criminal broken into my car, they had outright lied in their little extortion note. I took a deep breath, trying to clear the haze of anger clouding my mind. Getting worked up wasn't going to help right now. First things first, I needed to assess the damage. I placed the groceries on the roof of my car and did a quick inventory of the interior. The center console had been completely emptied. They had taken the owner's manual, my insurance and registration info, and even the pack of gum I kept in there. The glove box was a similar story. My vehicle service records, garage door opener, and tire pressure gauge were gone. But most alarmingly, my purse was nowhere to be seen. And in that purse was my military ID, driver's license, passport, social security card, and debit cards. Essentially all forms of identification I had on me. I felt myself growing woozy. How was I going to replace all of those crucial documents and cards while living abroad? This was quickly turning into a nightmare. After calling my husband in a panic, I knew I had to deal with this immediately. Following the criminal's instructions seemed idiotic, but I didn't know what else to do. I drove my car, broken window and all, to the local police station. Mind fuzzy with adrenaline, I shoved the sticky note towards the officer at the front desk. "Please help, my car was robbed and I was told to come here for my belongings," I pleaded. The officer didn't even glance at the note. "I do not know what you are talking about. We did not take any possessions from your vehicle," he replied gruffly. "But the note ... IAT says you took my things because of an expired sticker," I stammered in confusion. "We do not confiscate people's belongings. You must be mistaken. There's nothing I can do to help you," he said dismissively. My blood boiled again. How could this complete stranger deny any culpability when the proof was right here in this note? "I need to file a police report then," I demanded. "All of my identification documents were stolen, including my passport. Please just write up the report." Suddenly, the officer changed his tune. His eyes widened slightly and he leaned in over the counter, lowering his voice. "Okay, perhaps there has been some confusion. Leave me your information and we will look into this matter." I knew then without a doubt that the police were involved in this extortion scam. It was clear from the officer's shift in attitude that he wanted to avoid me making a formal report, likely because it would reveal their role in illegally confiscating people's belongings and holding them for ransom. Despite the officer's assurances, I didn't trust that the local police would actually investigate this theft. I needed to go higher up the chain of command. As soon as I got back to my house, I called the U.S. Embassy and explained the situation. Thankfully, the staff there took my claims very seriously. They walked me through the process of obtaining a temporary passport and said they would contact the local authorities to press for an investigation. Over the next few weeks, I leaned heavily on the embassy's support. They helped me obtain replacement documents and new cards while the authorities supposedly looked into my claims. Eventually, the truth was revealed. A local gang had been targeting vehicles with expired inspection stickers. Assuming the owners were foreigners unlikely to follow up or complain, they would break into the cars, take the valuable belongings, and leave the fake note redirecting people to the police station. Some of the corrupt officers were in on the scam, confiscating bribes in exchange for returning people's stolen items. In the end, 3 officers were charged and arrested. The head of the gang was also apprehended and faced jail time for the robberies. I was thankful to have the embassy on my side, as there's no way I could have navigated this overseas nightmare without their support. In the weeks following, I saw flyers posted around base warning of this extortion scam and instructing people to contact the U.S. authorities if targeted. I felt relieved that some justice had been served. While my experience had been terrible, hopefully it opened up the issue and prevented the same thing happening to others down the road. The criminals may not have learned integrity, but hopefully they did learn that foreign visitors have resources and power too. In the end, this military spouse came out on top. The next one is a petty revenge story. Back in November, my wife had her phone number stolen. The first we knew about it was when I called her from work and it went to the voicemail of a different network provider. Fairly shortly after, they started getting into her financial apps and changing logins and passwords and trying to access credit cards. We locked everything down, but they managed to max out a credit card. It was a traumatic time for my wife, and I was quite angry about it. I toyed with the idea of getting a burner phone and making threatening calls, but I was warned off from doing this. But I needed to do something, cue petty revenge. I stumbled across a mention of an SMS bombing website on a sub on Reddit, and I decided to have a look. Oh my word. This was perfect. And knowing that they would be using the phone to receive OTP texts, it seemed the best way to disrupt them. I could send up to 200 texts at a time, at a rate of either slow, medium, or fast. So I sent 200 at the fast rate, then 200 more. Then I left it for about an hour, and then sent 200 at the slow rate and then 200 more. Looking into the website more, I found that I could also schedule texts to be sent, only 25 at a time though, so I scheduled 25 to be sent every hour through the night. The next day, I carried on with my onslaught of 200 at a time. If my calculations are correct, I sent in excess of 6,000 texts in a 24-hour period. When I'd finished, I withheld my number and dialed my wife's number. It was dead. It no longer existed. Mission accomplished. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I work for my country's customs administration. We basically do what you would expect. Anything that comes into my country is subject to duties, levies, and taxes, and the goods can be inspected to ensure all the paperwork filed actually conforms with reality. Certain differences exist between private and commercial goods. Most private goods are not subject to customs duties, exceptions being meat, alcohol, tobacco, and a few other products. But other than that, customs law applies in every aspect to both commercial and private entities crossing the border. Meaning that many regulations, usually reserved for truck drivers and professionals, can easily be applied when it comes to private individuals. This was something a particularly nasty traveler had to realize when he bumped heads with my superior. I was working a night shift at a rather small border station in the north of my country, where me, a colleague, and my superior had activated an irregularly manned border station. Not all border stations are permanently manned, and opening a border station outside of its assigned working hours is referred to as activating it. It was 3:40 in the morning, and we didn't see too many cars. The ones that crossed over were foreigners who drove into our country for work. Many of them lived in the border region, knew the procedures, and played ball. Some were friendly, some a bit grumpy, unsurprising if you have to get up that early. But all of them did as we asked, show some identification, answer our questions about what is in your vehicle, and maybe endure us taking a look inside. And then it arrived. A black Porsche Cayenne. Until then, I didn't even know that Porsche made SUVs. In the Porsche was Mark, not his real name. Mark basically looked like Christian Bale looked while playing Patrick Bateman in the movie American Psycho. The suit, the haircut, his briefcase, everything indicated that he had money and wanted people to know about it, which is fine. People should enjoy having nice things, and signaling is a part of social interaction. We treat everyone the same, and we expected this encounter to go as uneventfully as the previous ones. Boy, were we wrong. We nicely asked him for his ID card or passport, which he handed over. We then asked Mark what he was transporting in the car. When he stopped, we saw that there were several cardboard boxes in the trunk and on the back seat, which he answered with, "I don't see how that is any of your business." Bad mistake. It was, in fact, not only our business, but the very nature of our job. And since Mark had not only failed to answer, but had also failed the attitude test, we ordered him to open the trunk. He got out of the car and opened his mouth again. "I will open the trunk, but just so you know, I want this done by the book. You touching my stuff is unacceptable to begin with, so if you damage anything or I find as much as a smudge, I will put you in a world of hurt. Now confirm that you understood me. Now." At this point, my superior stepped forward. "We have understood you quite well. Now I just need to know whether you were serious when you said that you want this to be done by the book. Can you confirm that you want this done by the book?" Mark then sealed his fate by answering in the affirmative. upon which my superior updated him on the situation. Splendid. According to customs law, the person crossing the border is responsible for opening and unloading the vehicle he or she drives, must unpack all containers, present the goods for inspection, repackage them, and reload the vehicle. When it comes to non-commercial crossings, we usually do all that, as not to inconvenience private travelers, but since you want this done by the book, you will have to do it. Failure to comply allows me to keep you and your vehicle at this border station for as long as I want. Any kind of resistance allows me to restrain you, and now get to work, and make sure you don't accidentally damage your own car or its contents. Mark then had to lift several cardboard boxes filled with all kinds of personal items. It appears he was moving apartments into the border station, had to unpack all of them, lay out the contents piece by piece for inspection, repackage everything, and reload his car. Had he simply answered that the boxes contain nothing significant, we would have taken a quick glance into the trunk, and he would have been on his way after 3 minutes. This way, the whole procedure took 35 minutes and left some nice sweat stains on Mark's shirt. He filed a complaint. The complaint was dismissed, since everything was done, by the book. The next one is an entitled people story. First, I must say that the story takes place in a very corrupt country where mass protests regularly occur. Second, I must not reveal too many details, but they are not so relevant to the story. I am an IT guy who worked for a state-owned company. That company had 3 factories. I can't say what the company did because it was the only state-owned company that did it, so I would be easily identified. I had a boss, let's call him Bogdan, who really loved our government, maybe because that's how he got his job. And it was clear when he tried to force us all to vote for them by giving us pre-filled ballots. I used it to wipe my ass and found a new ballot, and attend rallies for our great leader. I refused to go and didn't get some privileges like some others did. If you wonder why I didn't quit, the job was peaceful, and since I'm an introvert and making good money, I could endure Bogdan yelling at me once every 2 weeks. One day after tragic events in our country, protests against the government started, which I also attended. By chance, I passed by a group of journalists, which was a miracle because there were at least 20,000 people. Some colleague of Bogdan reported it to him, wanting to get rid of me, and he called me to scold me after 2 days. Bogdan, you represent this company, and you must not appear at political protests. Me, you can't control what I do outside of work. Bogdan, it will look bad with our clients. If I catch you at a political protest again, I'll fire you and make sure you can't find a job. Me, okay, as you say. It took me 2 days to find a job at another company. At the next protest, I deliberately passed by 4 different journalists, and of course Bogdan saw me. Bogdan, I warned you, you're fired. No state-owned company will hire you. Me, okay, I'm leaving then. Bogdan, even if you apply to a private company, we'll cut off their clients until they fire you. In short, state-owned companies will stop doing business with them. They often do that in our country, but mainly with small companies. Me, okay, call, company name. Context. That company is one of the largest companies in our region and has offices worldwide. Me, if you manage to convince them to fire me for attending the protest voluntarily, I'll happily become homeless. I left and took everything I owned. Oh, did I mention that the program the whole company was working on was mine? Bogdan was forced to stop using my code. Without my code, the company started to fall apart and would have gone bankrupt if it weren't for corruption, but they saved it and turned it into something else. Bogdan called me and said he was fired because of me, and I told him to go to hell. Here I am in a new company with 170% of the salary from my previous job. The next one is an entitled parent story. My sister-in-law Jessica, 29F, and her husband, my brother Liam, 32M, are staying with me, 27F, and my wife, 30F, due to foundation trouble at their own home. Simply put, she's been an absolute nightmare when it comes to taking things that aren't hers and brushing them off because she needs them due to her baby, my nephew Liam Jr., M, 3 months. I'll just list the worst of it, but do note this is a very condensed list. 1. She took my expensive hair products made specifically for thick hair because, and I quote, Liam Jr. can't handle strong scents and yours are just gentler on his nose. She used an entire 16 ounces bottle of conditioner in 3 days. 2. I caught her trying to take the food I ordered for everyone into her room after it was delivered. I ordered almost 6 full meals to dish out for the entire house, and she was just holding this large paper bag in her room. She told me she was just sorting through it to find her food, but she was sitting down with chopsticks and the door was closed, so I call BS. 3. All of my snacks. My pantry has a shelf labeled specifically for me due to a mild food allergy that has all the snacks that I bought. I keep seeing her walking back and forth past my room with my snacks. If I or my wife try to confront her, she cries that she's breastfeeding and she needs the energy. Then she'll get my brother to chew me out. For the record, we do have a communal snack bin, but she won't touch the snacks in there. 4. She took my gift card stash from my shelf in the kitchen and spent nearly $75 on random BS because she claimed she wanted to make the room more comfortable for Liam Jr. I use those gift cards when I go shopping or as presents for sudden events. She knows this and still took 8 gift cards out with her. It's been nonstop for the last 3 weeks and I'm so ducking done with her. She's taken my hair ties, my shirts from the laundry, my sleep bonnets, and my lipstick. She even took a bottle of my apple cider gummies, which I know she doesn't like because she's tried them before. I feel like she's doing it just to spite me or to assert herself, but I'm seriously considering kicking her out. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.